Holy Christ. I cannot believe the motherfuckers at Disney Star Wars. This episode was literally every single problem we have ever had in the Ahsoka series shoved into one episode. They really wanted to ram us deep, say, yeah, you thought these other episodes were bad? Well, you haven't seen nothing yet. So we start off with, guess who? The council in person. And instead of it being like a grand cathedral of every single race coming together to have a UN-style diplomatic talk, it's 6 guys in a room and 3 or 4 guys in the background. There are more people at local councils in Australia that show up to talk about what's happening in the council than a general getting told off for literally disobeying orders. But don't worry, we get the best thing yet. I'm not going to talk about what they're talking about because, quite frankly, it's boring. It amounts to generic Asian senator going, well, I don't think you're right, Miss Hera. You have no proof that the Imperials exist. I'm like, you for real? Come on. And then, of course, he gets a talking to. But not after we get some key jangling. We have C-3PO in the house. Oh, my Lord. We have to jangle these keys hard. They get real rusty. They don't move anymore. And he says, Senator Organa said that Hera could do whatever the hell she wanted. So it's all cool, guys. Don't worry. Senator Organa is in charge of literally the defense of the Republic. Are you for real? Defense of the Republic? Okay, sure. Yep. She did some good things in, the episodes 1 to 3. I should say 4, 5, 6, but whatever. And, she led the assault on the moon of Endor kind of badly. She was around and awarded some awards in the end of A New Hope. So, I don't know. She definitely has, some political power, but to be head of the defense, yet doesn't show up to a meeting where she should clearly be talking about the head of defense and the fact that Hera is a part of the head of defense. Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous key jangling just for the sake of key jangling. And we also have some droid racism. Oh, you can't trust the word of this droid? And you have Chopper clappering angrily. What? Who cares about droid racism in this freaking show? Get it out of here. It doesn't matter anymore because we've clearly seen droids be treated with reverence and respect a lot. So why we have droid racism now? We actually going to do something with droid racism? No? Then don't bring it up. So we skip a lot. We have some lovely girl boss talking between Mothma and Hera and just, I'm sorry, this scene it's so pointless. Every single scene that General Hera is meant to be a general in, she just feels like a cosplayer going, I'm General Hera. Come on. So we get our title screen, which is Dreams of Madness. And we have Ahsoka training with some more key janglings. Jingle, jingle, jangle. We got Anakin back, boys. Anakin in a recording saying, Ahsoka, I may not be there, so you better train these forms. And we see Ahsoka being the oldest person in existence, barely being able to pull off these forms. Now, I'm not saying that Rosario Dawson is too old to play this role, but in this scene, it most certainly looks like she's too old to play the role. She can barely pull off some pretty basic moves in a freaking training sequence where she probably should have had, someone speeding up the timing, slowing down the timing to make her look a little bit more, professional, powerful, anything. And it's only here so they can key jangle some more Anakin's face. It is absolutely ridiculous. Don't get me wrong. Hey, Did you know that this young age technology works really well when you put a filter over it, a CRT filter, so it makes it very hard to pick out how rubbery their face is and how just off-putting their costume is? Wow! Moving right along, we have the Purgles slowing down. They enter into space and then they're immediately in a minefield where they're getting blown up. And she goes, how can they possibly predict that we were going to show up? Thrawn must be here because we predicted that they're going to show up and they've met up. What? Wouldn't you put minefields outside of planets? Just in case anyway, especially if you're doing a pretty important operation. Meanwhile, we get the most useless fighter pilots back again, who do literally nothing and miss an infinite amount of times. I'm sick of these ships. Why do they exist? They literally do nothing. And we have Thrawn going, well, it's time to call off our fighters because we don't want to keep chasing them in the minefield. Don't worry, we'll find them later. But if you remove the fighters, how are we going to keep track of Ahsoka? Well, I'll tell you, we're going to have the witches come in and literally use witch magic to find out where she is. Oh my lord! Couldn't we just have a scan say where she is? And we then head to the ground and we meet up with Ezra and Sabine. These two have less chemistry than a bag of cement. It is so boring. And guess what? Sabine, you're kind of at fault, but maybe you could come clean at some point and literally talk to this guy about what the hell is going on. Oh, don't worry. I'm putting my feet up on the dashboard. Have you guys seen the image where the girl had her feet up on the dashboard and she got into a crash and it showed the x-rays afterwards? Yeah. Maybe you shouldn't put your feet up on a dash on a moving vehicle. Now that being said, these moving vehicles are moving freaking slow, which is going to be pretty important later when they do some tactical maneuvering. It's quite bad. Moving on, because they don't really say anything, they just stare at each other for ages, we meet up with Balin and Shin, and we have the starting of the destruction of the Balin characterization. This motherfucker got treated and got done dirty more than any other character in this series, in this episode. He has been completely ruined in my eyes. He was actually going somewhere last episode. I was going, yeah, this guy might have something. But then he does the stupidest thing ever and literally ditches Shin. Literally goes, yeah, you're fine by yourself. Go ahead. Now, of course, we're like, well, maybe he's predicting Ahsoka's going to show up and he's going to slow down Ahsoka and fight Ahsoka the whole time. And guess what? That happens. Ahsoka shows up, but not before having another stupid chase with the goddamn freaking fighters that absolutely suck. I hate these fighters so much. They miss constantly and just do nothing. Meanwhile, while she's getting chased by these fighters, the stormtroopers have been sent out to attack Sabine and Ezra. And while this attack is going on, the initial contact between Shin, the bandits, Ezra, and Sabine have started. And we have these rock people literally throwing rocks using a slingshot, reminding us of the horrible, horrible Ewoks, except for they're even worse than the Ewoks. They don't even have traps. They don't have giant trees. They're not using nature against the enemies. They're literally tossing pebbles at enemies that do no damage. Then they start doing some evasive maneuvering and they knock some people off their wolf, dog, horse things. Meanwhile, they are moving incredibly slowly. You can see when they're going to turn left or right, but whoa, it's scary. And they are attempting to stop these rock creatures, not by using some sort of explosive weapon, not by using some sort of tactics. They are just going to shove their teeny tiny electrical spear into the sprock at the back end of these beetle freaking hovercrafts to disable them. And when they disable one beetle hovercraft, instead of the rest of them continuing their movement away from each other, Ezra has the bright idea. No, we must circle around and stop. What? You're going to stop your convoy to save a single person? Now, while that is noble, that is the dumbest thing you can possibly do, because you're going to lose the one advantage you had, which is numbers and the fact that you have momentum on your side. The moment you lose those numbers, the moment you lose that momentum and stop in place, guess what's going to happen? Some person with a rocket launcher or a bomb, especially, you know, that bomb that we saw in the first episode and never saw again, could literally wipe the field of all the threats to Thrawn's regime and every single other possible problem that would come afterwards. But no, instead we are going to literally miss our shots constantly and have the worst, and I repeat, the worst conversation ever, where Sabine goes, "Hey Ezra, have your lightsaber back." And Ezra's like, "No, I have the Force. I don't need some pathetic child's toy. It's your lightsaber now, Sabine. I have relinquished my post as the Jedi of this order. You're now the Jedi." And she's like, "Whoa, come on, take a blaster at least." And Ezra's like, "No, I couldn't possibly use such a thing." During this time, Ahsoka says, "Hey, Mr. Droid buddy, I'm going to need to jump out of this ship that's flying literally many kilometers an hour. In fact, so many kilometers per hour, it's literally flying. That has to be a very fast speed because this is a spaceship. They don't move slow, they move fast." And she's like, "I'm going to need you to do the maneuver on 3, 2, 1. And what is this maneuver for her to get out of the ship? The stairs turn into a slide, and she slides down the slide and then breaks her ankles terribly on the ground below. Like, legitimately, she would have no legs after this fall. Probably a severe concussion, but don't worry. She has the Force. She is perfectly okay. And as luck would have it, she literally walks towards the one guy, Balin. And we have to have our Jedi Master Sith duel. Do it. And we have Ahsoka meeting up with Balin, and they have, quite frankly, a terrible conversation. "I can't allow you to interfere." "Why?" "Because I must stop you here, or at least slow you down." "Oh, okay." I'm sick of this stuff. I'm sick of it so much. Meanwhile, Sabine is now fighting the bandits again, and these bandits refuse to use their ranged weapons in any sort of meaningful way, and she uses her sword. Come on, Ezra, why are you using the Force like that, dude? And it's at this point we see Sabine get whacked in the head and literally go unconscious. But no, she's fine. She then gets whacked in the hand and literally breaks her wrist. But no, she's fine. Ezra is using Force Judo. She then blocks a stick with her arm again, breaks her arm again. It's absolutely ridiculous. Meanwhile, we have Shin starting to fight Ezra with Force powers, who's able to block every single Force strike with the lightsaber because, well, Shin's kind of just waving in the air, not anywhere close. Absolutely ridiculous until Sabine shows up with her sword and to interrupt this duel. It's quite honestly terrible. And we have Sabine going, "Hey Ezra, take her now." And it's at this moment we lose all sense of logic. Shin force pushes Ezra so hard that it momentarily knocks him out. "Hey Shin, you know that Force move you just used on the Force user? How about you use that on the person literally next to you that has a lightsaber and is a threat? Why don't you start Force choking her the moment that you Force push this guy away? Just like you were doing in episode 5? No, you don't want to use that Force choke again? That incredibly powerful move? Alright, I mean, she's got no force powers to interrupt, and even if she did have force powers, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. What are you doing? Seriously. Ahsoka continues fighting Balin, and we have the Deus Ex Machina of good old David Tennant robot shooting magical space lasers that gas the ground. Well, by space lasers, I mean missiles, which you'd think would do even more damage, but it does literally nothing. And after the smoke clears, we see that Ahsoka has teleported away. Literally teleported away, and has stolen and started commanding the horse dog creature that Balin was controlling. So if Balin wasn't here with this force dog, quite frankly, Ahsoka would not be able to show up in the rest of this episode. Shin and Ezra would be dead. But no, we're going to overlook this fact, and we're going to have the further desecration of the character that is Balin by having him completely give up on fighting Ahsoka. Now we get it. Balin's probably not really caring about whether Ahsoka lives or dies, or whether she's a threat to Thrawn or not. But it's at this point we just go, what the fuck, Balin? You sent your apprentice to die, and you literally just go, fuck it, and walk off. This is not your character. Your character was to complete the mission. Now, this is probably not the mission that you care about. Your mission's probably further deeper in the same galaxy, but why would you leave at this moment? Why didn't you leave the moment you got on the planet? Why did you have to wait this long? Why did you lead Shin along just to ditch her here? What the fuck is wrong with you? Now, we all know, unfortunately, Ray Stevenson has died, so this is probably the last time we will see this character in this incarnation. We'll get a different version of him next season. If there is a next season, it probably won't be called Ahsoka. It'll probably be called, I don't know, Sabine Wren Show or something. Just ridiculous. I have a strong feeling that in the next episode, Ahsoka might die. Why do I have this strong feeling? Well, kind of right now, Ahsoka is just ridiculously overpowered in every single shape and form. It's kind of stupid. Now we have those stormtroopers that left the base early, and we have probably one of the best looking things in the entire show, which is this sort of mix between the Clone Wars troop carrier and the TIE fighters of modern day. And it's really cool looking, really well designed, and actually looks weathered nicely compared to a lot of the sequel trilogy stuff, which is usually has this overly polished, overly shiny look to it. This actually looks like something that was used by people because it's got a bit of wear and tear and love attached to it. And we get this weird map that shows the stormtroopers heading towards Ahsoka and Sabine and Shin and Ezra, and it just sort of feels very, very off. The stormtroopers gather around very, very, very slowly into position when they could just literally start opening fire straight away. But no, they have to wait for Shin to say, destroy them. And then for some reason, they don't shoot straight away because Ezra goes, no, take us prisoners, take us prisoners. And I'm just like, dude, just shoot them. What? Who cares about them being prisoners? Until Shin says, shoot them. And of course, Ahsoka shows up and goes, no, you won't. And pushes away like 3 dudes. And then every single stormtrooper who wasn't affected by Ahsoka showing up out of nowhere shoots literally in midair above them. Like, I know stormtroopers have bad aim, but I didn't realize it was that bad. Like, they weren't affected whatsoever, and they're just literally shooting absolutely nowhere. I'm going to show you this clip again. They're literally shooting absolutely nowhere. Just, what the hell, dude? Now we have Ahsoka fighting Shin without a lightsaber, I might add. And we also have Huyang, David Tennant robot, still being chased by these same 4 fighters since the beginning of the episode. They haven't been able to destroy the ship. That, I might add, was supposedly damaged less than 2 episodes ago, and this ship is taking absolutely nothing. It don't give a fuck. These guys missing constantly, and all he's doing is slowly going left, slowly going right. This motherfucker is absolutely shit. I am just completely tired of this show. But don't worry, we have Thrawn saying, hey guys, don't worry, we got time on our side because the enemies were distracted and we're almost ready to go. And we get another stupid ticking clock, which we hadn't last seen until episode 4 or 5, whatever it was, when we saw a ticking clock for no reason to build pointless tension between Balin's fight and Ahsoka until Balin beats Ahsoka, and then that ticking clock just disappears. Where'd it go? This ticking clock is exactly the same. It means nothing. I hate it. And then the stormtroopers suddenly retreat, and Shin, instead of retreating with the stormtroopers, just sort of stands there dumbfounded. And then the stupidest thing happens, which is Ahsoka's like, hey Shin, I can help you. Because, you know, we got to redeem Shin somehow. Ugh. And then we get the reunion between Ahsoka and Ezra, where we have just, again, these characters have no emotions whatsoever. We get a laugh though from Ahsoka. I am over this show. I am over this stupid invulnerability. I'm over this crappy show direction, these terribly designed fights where no one uses their guns, no one aims at anyone, and even when they do land shots or hits, it does absolutely nothing to the people that they hit and touch. I am sick of this shit. Thank God there is only 1 episode left. 1 episode of crap, and then we're done. And after this episode of crap is done, I am going to rewrite this entire show, every single episode, and I'm going to end at the exact same spot and try to keep all the characters going to the same places, but I'm going to improve their motivation, their ideals, everything. I'm just sick of this show and it's terrible writing, and the only way to prove that shit is by writing a better show using their same logic. Anyway, 1 more episode to go, and we're finally free of Ahsoka. I couldn't be more glad. I'm so bored of this show. It just keeps going and going and making the same mistakes over and over and over. See you later.